Hey, what's happening, Beachcombers? Welcome to another Typhoon. It is our Typhoon for May of 2019. And coming in with a force is Michael Freed. Hello! What's happening, brother?
Hello! How's everyone?
What is going on? Ooh, I should have my bats ready. We can have a bat fight. We can have a virtual bat fight.
I got mine ready.
All right, before we get to the bats, what you drinking tonight, sir?
I am drinking a, oh my gosh, Dark and Stormy ginger beer with dark rum.
I figured since
I figured you'd be drinking out of that.
I figured since you were on, I have to drink out of the tiki bar nearest to you, the Inferno Room, which I must get to. So I will come for a visit soon.
Yes, you should. It's an awesome tiki bar. It is awesome.
Cheers, sir. Yeah, I like to come to town, do a class, see the sights, hang out with you guys, you know, the usual.
That would be awesome.
Cool. All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about baseball and softball bats. Now, you might get into it, but I'm going to ask this question, like I don't know anything. Is there a difference?
There is. I got asked that. I gave this presentation, a shorter version at the Ohio meetup, and got asked that, and I was stumped because I really didn't know. It says it on the bat, but there is a difference. Baseball bats tend to have a little bit shorter of the barrel area, which we'll get into, and at least fast pitch softball bats are all 2 1/4 inch and have a longer barrel. So, all right. We could do a whole show on the differences, but we'll try to keep it short. Most bats say what they are, and that's all you really need to know.
All right, well, without further ado, sit back, and it's all you, brother.
All right, let's jump in and make sure I got the presentation up myself. So we're going to talk about bats today, as Jason said, baseball and softball bats. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mike. I'm from Indianapolis, and some of you may know me as Moo Moo Mike. You got that slide up, Jason? That's all right. We were at, my wife Amanda there and I were at Open last year, and went to Jason's party at Frankie's, and I was one of the 3 of us that wore a Moo Moo. So I'll definitely be there next year and wear a Moo Moo this year. Probably the same one, unless I can find another one. We've been looking. My wife's got a new one. We sold hers. We called it had lace all over it. We called it the Little House on the Prairie Moo Moo, and sold it a month or 2 after Vegas. So, and then next slide. I'm also known as Caribou Mike. I get lots of nicknames for whatever reason, but I'm an admin on the Complete Reseller, and board games is probably what I'm best known for. But I'm also very well known for baseball and softball bats.
Give me 2 seconds here.
No problem.
I heard an echo, so I'm switching to headphones.
Okay. If you need me to switch too, I can as well.
I think as long as one of us is doing it, and since I'm just going to be sitting back and relaxing, I might as well do it.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, cool. Now we're off and running.
All right. So we're going to get into bats. Don't worry. This is not my personal collections. It's a picture I found on the internet. And next slide, please.
So, hey, real quick, though, what's that thing with the ball on the, 2-foot stick?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay. I'm like, all right.
I have no idea. The duffel bag on the right is probably a baseball bat duffel bag. Some of those have slots that'll hold the bag. You can sell those for good money too. I haven't found a good one yet to flip. So I'm not a bat expert. I have been selling them for about 1.5 years now on eBay. I think I watched, it may have been one of Jason's shows or probably the thrifting board, and somebody had a bolo for bats, and I just started looking at them. Didn't know what I was doing, and just figured it out along the way, but I can give you guys a head start. So I'm not an expert, and you don't need to be one. You don't even need to be a baseball fan. But I have played baseball. This is a picture of me from 1983. I was probably 8 years old, and it's the last time I played baseball. I might have played the year after this. I'm not sure, but Just paid Pee Wee League baseball. So back then we had these old heavy aluminum bats we'll look at later that are not worth flipping, but we'll go on from there. So why do you want to flip bats? Well, to make money, of course, but there's over 38,000 bats sold on eBay in the last 90 days. I did a search, and over half of those, 20,000, are used. They're everywhere. You can find them at garage sales, thrift stores, flea markets. You may even have some in your house. They're easy to list, easy to ship, got a high return on your investment, and they sell year round. Next slide. This is a quick search I did on Terapeak of the last year of sales for used bats. You can see there that they do sell year round, especially if you look at the bottom graph and the items sold. It does tend to peak around April, May time of year, and then slowly trails off to January. But even in January, they're selling maybe 50 bats a day. So it's a year-round thing. So we'll jump in on give you a little bit about the parts of the bat. So when we're talking later, you'll know the lingo. The big part there is the barrel. We'll talk about that a lot in this presentation. And on on the newer bats, most of them have some kind of plastic end cap. Older bats usually don't. And then on the other end of the bat, you have the handle where you're going to hold on to it, the grip or tape, and at the very end, you have the knob. So types of bats. There's really three main types of bats: wood, metal alloy, which is usually some kind of aluminum alloy. Composite bats are a new thing. And then hybrids are just a combination of these two. We'll jump into all these individually next. We got wood bats. And you can see this is the Louisville Slugger bat there. That's the kind of iconic wooden bat maker. We can go ahead to the next slide, Jason, sorry. And these have been around since the beginning. A wooden bat is baseball. They're still used. The only bat you can use in Major League Baseball is wood bats still. There really isn't much of a market, though, for used wood bats. We're really not going to talk about them today. Out of the 20,000 used bats sold on eBay, only 591 were wood. So there really just isn't a big market. There's a little bit for brand new ones. If you found one, it'd be worth looking up maybe. And then obviously, like autographed and all that would be a whole nother subject.
And I got to imagine of the used ones you just saw there, the 591.
Yeah.
Some of them are probably collectible and vintage, not to actually be used bats.
Oh,
anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't
so that's even a lower number because, most aluminum bats are bought to be used, whereas probably most of these wood bats are collectible vintage items.
Yeah, and when you go out looking for bats at the thrift store, if you find a wooden bat, they're in horrible condition. Horrible. I mean, they're cracked down the middle every time. So it's pretty obvious too that you're probably not going to find one anyway. Aluminum alloy bats. They come in all kinds of different alloys. You're going to see all kinds of different letter codes and name brands of alloys, but basically they're aluminum bats. And if you go to the next slide, I'll remember all the details I wrote down. These came out in the 70s. They were very popular in the 80s, like when I was playing. They were all one-piece aluminum, heavy. But they were better, more durable than wood bats, lighter, and had an advantage. They're still used today. There's some awesome aluminum bats out there now. When I did my search on eBay, I found 4,700 sold. So there's definitely a lot more aluminum bats being sold on eBay. And all these are used. That brings us to composites. They look just like the aluminum bats a lot of the times, and we'll talk about how to tell the difference, other than it will tell you on the bat. But composite bats have been out, if you jump to the next slide, since about, I forget what the date is. Can you jump to the next slide, Jason? That's okay. Yep, these are made from reinforced carbon fiber polymer. Basically, there's little strings of carbon fiber that make the bat with an epoxy resin. These have been around since the 80s in slow pitch softball, and then they really took off in maybe the late 1990s to early 2000s. And as you can see, there's over 8,000 sold on eBay. Now, if you add all the numbers up, it doesn't get to 20,000. And I assume that's probably because a lot of people aren't classifying their bat, whether it's aluminum or composite or wood or whatever. So there's still a whole bunch more out there that weren't classified. Now, tell the difference between aluminum composite bat. Unfortunately, I can't really do it here because I'm on carpet. But if you tap the bat on the floor, it will give a ringing sound. I'm actually going to bang two bats together. You'll hear that kind of ding sound. If you've ever played or been to a baseball or softball game with aluminum bats, you hear that ping sound. A composite, and Jason's going to do it. Yep. And a composite bat, I'll smack two of these together, see if it'll do it. It gives you more of a thud. Almost sounds like a wood bat. The bats will say on them too if they're some type of aluminum or composite, but that's a quick check too. Next slide. And then hybrids, we won't talk a lot about these, but basically it's a combination of the bats. The most often thing you'll see is a composite handle with an aluminum barrel. So it's basically a two-piece bat, and we'll talk about those a little bit more later. Of course, there's Lucille, the most iconic bat out there. If you do find a wood bat wrapped in barbed wire, it might be worth looking up. There are some collector's editions of these. This is a character from The Walking Dead, and his bat name is, he named his bat Lucille. It was one of my favorite shows, not so much anymore, but let's jump into the brands, and you can go ahead to the next slide. Easton is by far and wide the biggest name out there. 80%, I would say, of the bats you're going to find in the wild are going to be Easton. They make the cheapest bats all the way up to some of the most expensive. So they're definitely the biggest player in the game. The next one is, and hopefully I pronounce these all right, De Marini. They're a big name. Anytime I find a De Marini bat, I usually look it up. I'm still kind of learning what to recognize with those bats. They actually got bought out by Wilson. So all the big sporting goods players are in the bat game. And the next one is Louisville Slugger, which most people know is for making the wood bats, but they also make a few lines of composite and aluminum bats that sell for really good. And there's one right there. And after that, I think, is everyone else, as I called it. Worth, I used to joke that Worth bats aren't worth anything. I really haven't found very many in the wild that are worth a lot of money, but you can still sell them 30, 40 bucks. When I was doing research for this presentation, though, this slide and the last three were all combined in one, and it was about half as many brands as I have now. So there are a ton of players in the bat game. Even Nike, Adidas, Reebok have bats. And almost all of them, I think Adidas, I didn't really find any really good ones, but almost any brand you see here at least has one or two lines of bats that sell for really good money. We'll move on. So who's buying bats? You really have kind of four categories. You got the youth leagues, Little League, Pee Wee League, high school players, of course, college, they really start spending the money. And then the area that I kind of had some personal experience with in my past life as an engineer, and I started work in the late 90s, like 1998, 99 timeframe. And a lot of the guys played softball after work in these intramural leagues and stuff, and they were highly competitive. They even went to spring training. It was ridiculous. And even back then, it's 20-some years ago now, they were paying hundreds of dollars for bats, and they were buying bats on eBay even back then. So they buy a lot of bats. Some of these leagues have little or no rules or regulations. So bats, which we'll talk about in the future, that get banned or made illegal, they can use them in some of these leagues. So
you forgot one customer, single women who live alone.
Yes. And I've purchased a few bats we'll talk about later that had some damage and aren't resell worthy, and they sit by my front door now.
Yep.
I have a collection. So I touched on this just a little bit about what's a hot bat, and it's kind of a term I made up, and I guess some of my softball playing friends from years ago used the term, but It's really a bat that's no longer legal for play, and or a bat that the ball really hits off of well. It's called the trampoline effect. Imagine you're jumping on a trampoline. You can jump way higher on a trampoline than you can off the ground. It's the same thing with baseball and softball bats. Some of these bats basically flex or cave in when the ball hits them, and the ball springs off, and it turns somebody that's hitting singles and doubles, all of a sudden they can hit home runs if they get the right bat. It can really change the game. So we jump to the next. And that kind of brings us to a little bit of history here. You don't need to know all this to sell bats, but it's good to have the information available. Basically, in the late 90s to 2010, all the makers of bats, Easton and DeMarini and all these players were making hotter and hotter bats every year because they wanted to sell them. So they had to have the newest, greatest thing. They couldn't sell last year's bat this year. They have to have something better every year. So they got hotter and hotter, and it got to the point the team that won the 2009 College World Series was all using this bat that's pictured here, the Easton Stealth bat in 2009. And they were hitting home runs like crazy, and they actually got not just this bat banned, but they temporarily banned all composite bats until the regulations could catch up with the technology. And that brought in a rule change, which is the BBCOR standard in 2012. Now, this bat is no longer legal for competition in pretty much any baseball league, but it still sells today for $300 to $500. So if anybody, and I'll say this again, if anybody tells you you need to know what bats are legal and aren't legal and know all the regulations, they're full of it. You don't have to know. Just look it up on eBay. If it's selling, you can sell it. But just a little more fun fact here. The competition for hot bats is so fierce that people even doctor their own bats. This first picture in the top left-hand corner is they're basically machining the inside of the bat to make the walls thinner so that it will flex more. It significantly reduces the life of the bat too, but to get more pop, as they call it, out of the bat. And there's even these other pictures, people are using a hammer, a vise, and then what's called a bat rolling machine to basically break the bats in. Some bats will hit better after you've hit a few hundred balls. So instead of doing that, they manually do it. All this stuff's illegal. But I just wanted to show you here to show why they're getting an idea why people are spending so much money on these bats. If you jump to the next one, I even looked up the bat rolling machine, and I found one that's not near as nice as the previous picture. It looks like it's all manual, but it sold for $450. And this is all just to break your bat in so it will hit better. So people are more than willing to spend money on the sporting equipment to get any advantage that they can.
And the how-to webinar, how to juice your bat, it will be coming up in November from
This brings us to all the rules and certifications and illegal bat lists. Oh my. So this is just some of the stamps you're going to see on bats. If you jump to the next slide, I forget what order I did these. These are all the current certifications and one old one. The old one is the BESR. And honestly, that's the only one you might want to remember if you remember any of these. And that's ball exit speed ratio. That was in effect from 2002 to 2011, which was kind of the golden era of all these hot bats. So if I ever see that BESR certification, I definitely will at least take a second look at the bat and probably look it up online. All the rest of these, the BB core, I call it, is the current regulations. And then most of the rest of these are all the different governing bodies for PB League, Little League, and the different softball associations. So you jump to the next one. Like I said, don't worry about them. And again, if anybody tells you you have to know if a bat's legal or not to sell it online, you don't have to know. The buyers know what these bats are and what they're buying. So you really don't have to worry about it. So why don't you need to worry about certifications? And I kind of touched on this, but basically every year, new models of bats come out from all the manufacturers, and they do new model numbers. And the model numbers are right on the bat. And customers are still, so if the certifications change, the model numbers are changing with it. So you really don't have to worry about the certifications as long as you're looking up the model numbers. And customers are still buying the old illegal hot bats anyway. So even if they're deemed illegal now, they're still good to go. And this is just to prove my point a little bit further. I looked up illegal bats list, baseball bats list on Google just to try to find one of these lists. And this is some of the more modern bats. Obviously, you can see there's some pretty current year dates. Like this very first one, a 2017 DeMarini CF Zen bat sells for $900 on eBay. Yeah. It was made illegal, then was removed from the list. It was legal for play, and then it went illegal again, and now it's legal for play, hopefully permanently. This is ridiculous. But there's Easton on here, a Ghost bat, $90, a couple more $200 bats, a Dirty South bat, which I didn't even have in my list of brands, so that was a new one. There is one, the Mattingly bat. I couldn't find any sold on that one, but you get an idea. All of these are banned bats or were banned bats, and most of them are selling. So you really don't have to worry about it. So how do you look up a bat? There's really three things, and this is a pretty plain looking slide, but it is probably one of the most important slides in this whole presentation. So take a screenshot now. There's three things you really need to know about a bat: the model number, the length in inches, and the weight in ounces. There are a couple additional numbers on the bat. One of them is called the drop. You'll see it's usually a negative number, and that's just the weight of the bat minus the length. So that's just some terminology. If you see out there, now you know what it means. But really, if you know the model number and honestly just the length, if you look those up on eBay, you're gonna find the right bat. So we go to the next one, and here's an example. This is a bat I sold recently. It's using it for a few examples here, but Easton makes it super easy. Everything you need to know is right on the bat, and it's all in a nice, neat, even row on their modern bats. It tells you it's a softball bat already, so now you know. You got the model number there, the SSV1, the length in inches. Usually you're going to find 34 is about the longest you'll find. They can make longer ones. I haven't found one longer than that yet. And then the weight here is 27 ounces. So this is a drop 7 or -7 drop bat. And then it does give you the diameter as well. I put that in my listing, but honestly, when I'm looking up the bat, I'll just put in the model number, the length, and the weight. And, sorry, on some bats, on the end cap, you'll have the length usually, and sometimes the weight as well. So that's a different bat picture of.
For example.
Yes, if you have one. I have some too. But.
Yep. There we go.
Yep. Every once in a while, I don't sell and source as many old bats as I used to. I'm a little more picky now, but sometimes you couldn't read the length or the weight on the bat, or I just couldn't find it, and it'd be on the handle. So you're good to go. So read, one word of warning, read those letters and numbers carefully. The letter S and the number 5 look very similar on these bats. I have mixed it up more than once. They'll put them side by side sometimes, I swear, just to mess with you. And same with the letter B and the number 8. If you look up a bat on eBay and you find nothing in solds, which will happen, but if you also then go and check for sale and you don't find any for sale, you've probably messed up the numbers or letters on there. So just be aware of that. And somebody asked me, where do I look up bats? eBay, of course. eBay solds, just in case you're new. Definitely check there. Another important word, this is that same bat I've been showing. Don't look up just the name of the bat unless that's the only thing you can find on the bat. You can't find the model number for some reason. So this name of this bat is SV12, and it looks just like a model number. So if you jump over, I was struggling to look up this bat in the store and wasn't finding any comps. And I looked up the name and the length. I think I added the weight in, didn't find anything, so I took the weight off. Well, I found some, and they were selling for $200, and it looks just like the bat in the other pictures. But if you look carefully where I circled, the model number on this one is BSV1. If you go to the next slide, the bat I actually had in my hands is an SSV1. And I sold it very quickly for $30. I'm thrilled. I paid like $2 for it, plus I sold it plus shipping. But obviously, it's not the $200 bat. And the reason was the previous picture, that was one of the old DESR certification bats. You didn't need to know that, because if you look up the model number, you're good to go. So just be aware of that. Try to look up the model numbers when you can. So how to tell the difference between baseball and softball bat? Jason asked that at the beginning. Typically, a softball bat is going to have a longer, skinnier barrel. For fast pitch softball, they're all 2 1/4 inch. Baseball bats usually have the barrel section is a little bit shorter, even though the bat might still be overall 34 inches in length, and the barrels can be a little bit thicker. But most importantly, it's going to be right on the bat, so you really don't have to try and guess. Oh, this is words of wisdom, I guess. 95, like everything else, when you're outsourcing, if you're outsourcing t-shirts, 90-some% of the shirts you look at aren't worth flipping. It's the same thing with bats. You're going to find all kinds of junk bats out there. So I'm going to give you guys some tips of what to look for and what to avoid. Just so you're not, out there like I was when I started and, looking up 12 bats at every thrift store you go to, and you're exhausted by the end of the day. So some things I look for, the composite bats is always a good sign. That's a modern bat. It's probably been made in the last 10, 15 years. A lot of the composite bats are a 2-piece bat, which we will show in a minute. But if you can you jump to my screen real quick, Jason?
Yep.
I think I have a slide for this too, but it's a good place to go. So this bat is a Easton Stealth bat, a different model number than that orange one earlier that was $300 to $500. I have this one listed for $100 and I can't get rid of it. So look up those model numbers, but maybe not the best bat to show, but after this black area, there's like basically a black band here. So you got the purple handle down here and the barrel up here, and there's this black band area. So that's a 2-piece bat. It might be composite on both ends, or it might be aluminum and composite combined on one end or the other, but that's always a sign that you have a 2-piece bat. Other things I look for, larger diameter barrel bats. Some of the older baseball bats will be like even up to 2 3/4 inch diameter barrels. So that was a tip I got when I was first looking for them, and stick to it. End caps on the bats, like we talked about earlier, you got that plastic, usually black, but it might be colored cap on the end. And then what I've found, my personal experience, usually the longer the bat, the more money you'll get for it. 30 to 34 inch bats are adult size bats. When you get below 30, then you're getting into Little League and eventually into T-ball, and people just don't spend a lot on those for used. Yep, here's my example. I should have just went to this slide, the 2-piece composite bat. This is my example bat and the whole thing. You can go to the next slide. Cosmetic issues are okay. I'm going to have a bunch of pictures of cosmetic issues coming up. But you can have scratches, scuffs, marks, chipped paint, taped up handles on over the grip, or even no grip on the handles. I call all this game played condition. That's usually what I use in my descriptions as well. I'll say game played condition, and then go on to describe any issues. I didn't have any good pictures at home of a beat up looking bat, but I found this one online. You can see all these black marks on it and some white marks even. Those are all just ball scuffs, either from batting practice in a cage or gameplay even. And a lot of this will come off. Some of it doesn't, but the players are okay with that. Go to the next one. Here's the bat I got for sale right now. I showed a close-up picture of this with some deeper scuffs. I don't know what they did to get this on the bat, but it's pretty common. You're going to see scratches and scuffs like this. And if you see anything bad, you want to point it out to a customer. But it's okay to have on the bat. This is just another picture of a bat. You can see all these little scuffs and scrapes and marks on it, and those are all okay. And chipped, worn paint. This bat on the left is one I sold for a lot of money, and you'll always see worn paint on both ends of the bat, on the end cap area, and then on the handle. This one on the right, the handle's even missing the little cap that or sticker that will show you the length and everything on the bat. But the players beat these into the dirt when they're up to bat, and this is what happens. So they expect that. Then here's some examples of on the left there is just a completely worn grip. It's like smooth now, and even some of it's coming off. And then the one on the right, somebody just put athletic tape all over it. That's okay. Grip is something that's very personal to the players, so they're probably going to put their own grip on anyway. If they're paying $100+ for a bat on eBay, they're going to customize it when they get it and make it the way they want it. So you could put a new grip on these. They sell it in the stores, but I don't bother. Now, things to avoid. You're going to see in the thrift store a lot of old bare aluminum bats from the 70s and 80s. If you pick one of them up, so they basically don't have any paint on them. They'll have the logo on them, and but no real paint, not the glassy, shiny surface you see on the modern bats. And if you pick one of those up, they're going to feel really heavy compared to any of the other bats, especially the composites. Now, at first, you're not going to know the difference, but pretty quickly you pick up a few bats, you'll notice the difference. Short bats really don't go for much, especially T-ball bats. I don't know any parent that's going to go out and spend $100 on a T-ball bat for their kid on eBay. They will later, but not at T-ball. And another thing of the regulations, you don't have to know this, but I think it was a year ago, Little League Baseball and some of the other related leagues did a new certification on their bats. So almost any of the shorter Little League type bats you find in the store are going to be the old certification, and they just aren't using them. And then, of course, damaged bats. You don't want those, and we're going to jump into all the kinds of damage you can have on a bat next. But first, this is an example of what I mean by an old bare aluminum bat. And it's going to be heavy, but you're going to have this just a stamped on logo, and it may look really faded. And then you're going to often have this hard rubber sleeve. It's not like a wrapped on tape. It's just a pushed on sleeve. So you see one of these, occasionally I found some that sell for $20-$30, but I don't even look at them anymore. There again, T-ball bats. I suppose if you found a brand new one wrapped up like this, I might look it up, but just don't bother with the T-ball bats. I spent a lot of time looking at them early on, and I just run away now. They're kind of the Sarah of baseball.
Yeah, but they're a little harder to break than the ceramic model.
Yeah. This is another important slide. This is what I call the 3 fatal flaws of a bat: cracks, dents, and waves. We'll jump into the first one, cracks, on the next slide. And there's a lot of words here, but don't worry about all of it. Basically tell the difference between a crack and a scratch, because you're going to see lots of scratches on bats, and scratches are okay. The first big indicator whether you have a crack or a scratch is the orientation. Cracks are going to run along the length of the barrel or horizontal to the length of the bat. Scratches will often be perpendicular to the bat because they probably swung the bat and brushed up against something that's caused a scratch, whether it be dirt on the ball or whatever. The next clue is straightness. Cracks are going to kind of meander down the bat and not be perfectly straight. And scratches are always going to be straight or have a man-made look to them, maybe a curve or an arc or whatever. We'll show some examples in a moment. And one way to test, and it's not foolproof, but it does work most of the time, run your fingernail perpendicular to what you think is a crack. And if it is a crack, your fingernail will probably catch on it when you rub it across. If you catch it in the right direction, a scratch, you'll just rub over it. And you will see cracks in the paint, and those are okay if you see just a crack in the paint. But you definitely would want to disclose it to the buyer. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to show in pictures. This is why I was trying to show an example of a severely cracked aluminum bat. I did a lot of reading online, and in personal experience, I find cracked bats all the time in the thrift store. When I was reading online, the experts try to make it sound like aluminum bats never crack, but I find every time I go out, I find a cracked aluminum bat. So you can see though, this one just underneath the number 4 there, it really runs the whole length of the bat. That's one of the better areas to see it. And you can see it's not perfectly straight, and it's running along the length of the bat. I bought this bat just for purposes of demonstration. I have walked out of a thrift store with a damaged bat because I was so excited that I found a good one and forgot to check it. So don't be me. Check your bat at the store.
We've all been there. Like, oh, I found it. I get home like, oh, it's missing 3 buttons and there's a hole in it. Check.
Exactly. Here's an example I found of a cracked composite bat, and this one's severely cracked. I don't know if they did this by hitting a baseball or softball, or if they whacked it against a pole or something. But actually,
intruder
2 directions. Yeah, maybe somebody's head. Somebody named Glenn. I don't know. But that was just an example I had of a crack. And this one you can't tell in the picture. It's so severe you can even see some of the strands from the carbon fiber. So, and the next slide, I think, yep. I have never seen a bat like this, and I'll be honest, I would probably have put it away before seeing this picture and would not have picked it up. This is an example I found online of a well-broken in bat, and all these are cracks in the paint. So you can kind of see they almost make a diamond pattern in some of the pictures, and that's actually probably the way they weave the carbon fiber. So this bat was okay. I would be very cautious myself picking it up because it just looked really rough. But you can't. My main point though is you can't have cracks in the paint, and it's okay. Dents. That's the next big thing you want to check out. You're going to find lots of dented aluminum bats. You really won't find a dented composite bat because they'll probably just break. I was trying to do pictures of a dented bat that I have. You can feel it, but you just can't see it in a photograph because it's just not that severe a dent. But what you want to do is, if you flip back to me real quick, Jason, you just want to run your hands up and down the bat. You're going to look like a creepy old man in the thrift store. You will feel it. If there is a dent or any imperfection in the bat, you're going to feel it. So just run your hand up and down the bat and twist it in your hand, just the barrel area, and maybe down to till you get to the tape, but mainly the barrel area where it's making contact with it. You'll feel it. If you got a dented bat, I wouldn't bother trying to sell it. Nobody wants a dented bat.
So what you're saying is you want to stroke the shaft in the thrift store?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Stroke the barrel.
Oh, geez, that's dented. Oh my God.
This is the only picture I could find online where you could really see the dent. So this is pretty severe. I think it really helps where it dented too, is right on the straight line of where all the info is for the bat. So that's what a dent looks like if you can actually see it. Obviously, if you can see it, don't mess with it. Now, this is something I learned about after I'd been selling bats for a while, and I have a little story I'll tell later in the BOLOS section, but you want to check for waves too, and it's basically when the bat is out of round. It's pretty rare. I've really only come across one bat that had it, and I didn't know until I sold it. It really only occurs with some of the older thin-walled aluminum bats from what I've been able to figure out. But basically, the bat's going to be out of round. You're not going to be able to see it at all unless it was really severe. But you want to do similar to checking for dents, but you're going to just hold the barrel or the shaft in your hand and just rotate it. And your hand will feel any imperfections. It might feel a little, you might feel a little bump or it might feel a little oblong. But if you just run your hand up and down the bat, you might miss it. So that's just one more thing to check for. I don't think it can really happen with the composite bats. I still check anyway, just because I already got my hands on it and checking it out.
All right, have my hands on my shaft. Okay, cool. Just checking.
All right, so now we're moving into how to clean up the bats. I kind of have a 2 to 3 step process. You can wash them up with soap and water, and I have done that before, but I just get out one of my kitchen wipes. We have them already, and I stroke the bat again with the kitchen wipe. It gets a lot of the dirt and grime off, but the scuffs are still going to be there. So what you can do is get one of our favorite tools, a magic eraser, out and just start wiping those scuffs away. It'll get a lot of them off. Just be careful. Magic eraser is basically a real fine sandpaper, and with these newer bats, they have a really bright, shiny, finish on them, and it could make it look a little dull if you get a little overly aggressive. But my favorite tool, and I should get paid to sponsor them because I talk about them all the time, is Turtle Wax Label and Sticker Remover. So if Turtle Wax, if you're watching this, you could send me a few cans. I'm running low, but I use this stuff all the time to do just what it says on the label, get sticker residue off. It's great at removing black permanent marker. Just be careful with it. If you do use it, I call it lighter fluid in a can. It's some kind of automotive, gasoline type based fluid, but I'll wipe it down on the barrel of the bats and it will just magically wipe away most of the scuff marks and leave a nice shiny bat. Like I said, though, it is pretty strong chemical, so I'll come back and just wipe it down with a kitchen wipe or at least a dry paper towel to get it off, because sometimes it'll keep working after you don't want it.
That's not that this is the first thing I've learned, but this one's going to need a little cleaning. And I got that on my shipping table. I never thought about using it for the bat. That's cool.
Yep. I just tried it one day and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So you don't have to sit there and scrub with a magic eraser. You can just wipe a few times and you're good to go.
Yay.
There, you learned something. So this is an example. This was supposed to be my dented bat, but you can't tell in the pictures that the bat's dented. So I used it as an example of how you can clean them up. It does look in the right-hand picture like there's a whole bunch of scratches at the top, but that's actually some of the artwork of the bat. You can see all the dirt that was on that. I mean, it was brown, and now it's the Worth logo is nice and white and shiny and looks wonderful. Jump to the next one. Oh, this is just another picture. On this side of the bat, there's a nice scuff there below the W, or a couple of scuffs where it hit the ball, and those scuffs wipe away. Now, if you got scratches and nicks in the paint, as you can see there, those are all still there. It's not going to fix that, but it'll get all the scuffs off, and it'll help your bat sell. Shipping. And somehow I got things underneath the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me fix it real quick.
Thank you.
There we go.
That was our first glitch. So I ship them all priority mail, and you have to ship them international priority mail as well because the bat is too long for first class. I'm not sure what the limit is, but that's okay because I love to use these USPS priority mail medium tubes. It's on box number 1098, and they're 38 inches long. There is a shorter one. You want the 38-inch long one. Best part is they're free, and you can ship them, domestic or international, which is wonderful in the same box. I ship a lot of my bats to California, Florida, Hawaii, Canada, Australia, and I'm in Indiana, so all those places are far away. So I always charge shipping. I do, I think it's 2 pound, 8 ounces is just my flat number I throw in there. And people are on $100+ $50 bat, whatever, are more than happy to pay shipping. So I don't have an issue. You can do free shipping. Just know that you're going to be in that 2 pound range. Every once in a while, I'll sneak under 2. If you go to the next slide, this is how I ship my bats. I found when I was first doing it, I found a random video on YouTube on how to do it, and I've just kind of copied it ever since. It's a little bit of overkill, but I wrap the bat in some bubble wrap, and I fold over the ends and tape that up, and then I literally tape the bat to the inside of the box. And then you just fold up the box and obviously tape the outside of the box too, but you're good to go. Some people will just wad some paper in both ends, and that's fine too. You just don't want the bat, banging around in there. Honestly, if it did bang around in there, it'd be fine too. It's not going to get damaged in shipping, but I just like the presentation of it.
Yeah, genius. I never thought about taping it inside the box. I love that.
Yep, I never would have thought of it either. So I wish I could give credit to who I learned it from, but it was 1.5 years ago. I don't remember what I had for dinner. So how I do my listings, we'll jump into a little bit. We're almost to the fun part where I'll show you some of my solds and other BOLOS. And here is one, actually. I sold this bat for $200. It's a Louisville Slugger. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Xeno bat. But this is how I do my listings. I usually either show the whole bat or a close-up of the barrel, but I always do an angled picture like this, because I think you can get more of the bat in the picture and a bigger view of the bat too. So it just looks a lot better. I do this with anything long and straight. I try to throw it at an angle like this. And if you look up the title, I always put in the brand of the bat, the name, if the name has a bat, like this one is Xeno, but it also has the model number, the FP12X. And then I put in the length and the width, what kind of bat it is, if I know. If it said it's a fast pitch softball, I'll throw that in there. And then this is where you don't need it for looking up the bats, but I do put it in the listing, the diameter of the bat, and then I usually put the drop if I have enough.
Nice, clean title.
Thank you. I tried to pick a good one. I had some bad ones. So this is just an example of all the pictures. I almost always use all 12 pictures because there's a lot of sides to a bat. It's a pretty simple object, but to get views of everything that's going on it, it usually takes about all 12. So somewhere in your listing, you definitely want to have a picture of the entire bat. And then I try to show all sides of the barrel so people can see any imperfections, scuffs, scratches, whatever. I do a zoomed in area photo of the model number and length or whatever information's on the bat. Of course, a picture of the grip, and here's that worn grip I showed earlier, and I still sold this bat for $200. Obviously, somebody's putting a new grip on this bat when they get it, and they'll happily spend whatever it costs for the grip. And then I always show the end cap and the bottom end. I forgot what that term is even right now, but just so that especially so they can see all the scratches and scuffs that are going to be on both ends of the bat. And then this one, I just did a couple more close-up photos of the middle of the bat to show the like the LS2X, I think is like probably their brand name of the composite. So just so the customer can see everything. And then here's my description. On all my listings, I've gotten into habit. I just copy the title back down in the bottom and make it bold. That's just what I do. I include the condition, obviously up in the condition box, but then I put it down in the description as well. I almost always say game played condition. I just like the way it sounds. Reminding the customer it's a used bat. And then depending on the bat, I'll usually say there's scratches and wears throughout, and then I'll go into more detail if there's any specific condition flaws like chipped paint on both ends of the bat, so they can see that. And then I always say, kind of like on shirts, you say no rips, holes, tears, stains, whatever. I say no dings, dents, cracks, waves, or rattles. Dings is really not a real term, just like in eBay. Dings aren't a real it's really not, it's just a term people use. It basically means a dent, I guess. So I throw all those words in there, and some bats can rattle if some of like the composite stuff breaks off inside. The bats are still fine from what I've heard. I've never found one that rattled, but so sometimes they'll say it doesn't rattle either. And then if the handle is really messed up, I'll note that it needs to be taped or that it has been retaped. And then I like to just do a quick rundown of, again, just in case they didn't see it in the title, or also put it in all the listing criteria, those little check boxes. You put in the length and weight and all that. I put it down here again. Length, weight, diameter, drop, and material. This one I did put the certifications in. I usually don't anymore. It's pictured on the bat and nobody cares anyway. So next one. All right, now we can jump into some BOLOS. The first round, we got 3 rounds of BOLOS here. First round are ones that I've actually sold in the last year, and all but one of these I was able to pull up my old photos from Terapeak. If you aren't using Terapeak, start using Terapeak. It's wonderful. Most of these bats I bought for $3 to $4 at my thrift store, with a couple exceptions that I'll note as we go. So these are all ones you want to keep an eye out for. So here's the third version of a stealth bat we've seen tonight. That orange one, if you find the 2009 orange stealth bat, I forget the model number, but obviously that one's worth $300 to $500. I'll show you some solds later. This is a white one I found. It was a 2-piece composite bat. It's got a little band in it. It's just white, so it's a little harder to see. So I knew, based on it being an Easton Stealth and that it was a 2-piece bat, I definitely picked it up right away to check it out. But sold it for 60 bucks. Yay! And I paid probably $3 to $4 for that. Same with this one. I paid $3 to $4 at the thrift store. Sometimes I even get them as low as $1. Every once in a while, one of my thrift stores gets excited about bats and starts trying to charge $10 to $15, and then nobody buys them. So then they go back to the normal price. This is the one I just showed you guys a little bit ago on how to do a listing. Note that this bat is a 32-inch bat. What do you think this bat would go for in 33 inches?
300.
Well, let's find out. Go to the next slide. We won't make anybody. Yes, $300. 1 inch difference. Same model number, same year bat. $300 now instead of $200. This is not my listing. I didn't take a picture of a bat and a chair, although it really pops here. This is the one listing that I couldn't pull up in Terapeak that I wanted to, so I pulled up somebody else's just to have it there. And they actually got $360 for theirs. So I may have underpriced my bat. I don't know. I'm still happy if I turn $3 into $300. I'm running. This is another bat you'll see out there. I've only found one so far, but Easton Mako. As you can see, there's a theme here. Easton bats keep popping up. Sold this one for $90. This one I got a garage sale. I may have paid $10 to $15 for it, but still a great flip to turn $10 or $15 into $90. I remember asking the lady how much, and she didn't know, and we negotiated a price, and she had to call her husband or her dad on the phone to make sure it was okay. I thought for sure they weren't going to sell it at that price, but they did. And this is a 31-inch bat, so it's still falling in that 30 to 34-inch range. And the next one was another Easton bat, I believe. Yep. And this one I don't even remember. I'm pretty sure I bought this at a thrift store too. So the $3 to $4 range. This one didn't have any fancy names on it, but it just had that look of a more modern bat. Another thing you'll see sometimes, you can see on this one, the grip is 2 different colors. So it's kind of another thing. They're just trying to make their bats look pretty and stand out. I don't think there's really anything special about the grip, but if I see that, I definitely pick up these bats too. The next one's a Synergy bat. That's another Easton bat. So Easton makes all kinds of bats. You definitely want to keep an eye out for these. I would have some real life examples of these, but I sell them. As soon as I put them up, they're gone in a week to a month. If it's a good bat, I do have some that are lingering around, but so Synergy bats are always a good one to look up if you see that big logo on there. Some are worth way more than others. This bat didn't even have any tape or grip on the handle, and I thought, well, that's perfect. The person's going to take it off anyway, so they can put their own grip on. So this sold for $110. Crazy. And this is one of the few youth bats I've sold. I remember picking this one up in the thrift store because I had a really wide barrel. So it's they call it a senior league bat. And I think I forgot to do a slide on this, but I used to think senior league meant old men playing softball, but it's actually like little league baseball. They call it senior league sometimes, I guess. But senior leagues will allow wider diameter barrels. So this is one of those wide 2 3/4 inch barrels. So even though this is a youth bat, I still did get $40 out of it. So I picked it up. It's got the De Marini logo on it. That's always a good indicator to pick it up. And then it was a large diameter, so I picked it up to check solds, and it had good comps when I sold it. This one I actually bought on Facebook Marketplace. It's the only bat I've ever bought on Facebook Marketplace. I'll do some searches every once in a while, trying to catch somebody that doesn't know what they have, but it seems like, at least in my area, everybody on Facebook Marketplace that's selling a bat probably bought it last year for $300, and they're trying to get $200 for it now, and it's just not worth flipping. But I got this one for $20. I couldn't believe it. I had to drive up to north side of Indianapolis, about a half hour away, but just hit some thrift stores on the way there and back, and this one sold real quick for $100. This was an odd one I found. Almost all the bats out there are aluminum alloy bats if it's a metal bat. I did some research on this one. I forgot I'd even sold this one for $60. It's a titanium alloy bat. Probably very expensive back in the day. But I read up the history. Titanium bats were out for a very short period of time. They were far superior to the aluminum bats. So if you do see a titanium, basically because they're much lighter, titanium's a really light metal, and they could make the walls of the bat very thin, so it would flex more and but still not break. They had reached the max they could with the aluminum bats and technology at the time. So some of the manufacturers were trying out titanium. They were great bats, but they got banned very quickly, so there's not a lot out there. Here is one of the holy grails of bats. I thought it was the holy grail until I did a lot more research and found some bats that sell way more than this. But this is the Easton Z2K. The model number is BZ2-K. If you find this bat, you're making a lot of money. $470 is what I sold it for. It might have been a little bit on the low end. I got this last June or July. I was still kind of learning bats at the time, but as I garage sale, a guy had a whole bag of bats under a table. So one of Jason's tips actually from last night, look under the table at garage sales, flea markets, whatever. I started scrounging around. I found one bat that was worth like $50, I think, and then I found this one and I stopped looking. There's still 2 or 3 more bats in there. I didn't need to look anymore. So I started negotiating and went and talked to his wife. She said, well, you got to ask my husband. So he came over, a real nice old gentleman, and him hawed around. And I think he said $55 for everything. There's like a catcher's mask and stuff in there, but it's all really old. And I talked him down to $35, even though I knew I had a $500 bat. I still talked him down and ran out of there. I swear my arms were shaking. I was so excited because this is one of the higher priced items I've ever sold. Sold in a couple of weeks. I took a best offer. I don't think I had it listed for $760 as it says here, but and it went out to California, and this is where my story got a little crazy. I didn't know about waves at the time. And so the customer messaged me and says, hey, this bat's got waves. And he proceeded to write me a book about what waves were and how to check for them. And he was very honest. He was one of those sellers that actually knew, or buyers that knew what he was doing. And he said he bought several. He's probably buying them and flipping them because I had the price a little low. But we started to return. I decided, hey, I'll check this bat out when I get it back. If it does have a wave like he says, maybe I can still sell it local. And, a local customer can check it for themselves. And if they're happy with it, fine. Because you can still use the bat, just it's not in perfect condition. Well, he never returned it. A week went by, or however many, I think it's a week you have to return something. So I thought, oh, I'm in the clear. He didn't return it. Yay, $470. Well, then he messages me. He still wants to return it. He was on vacation or some crazy stuff. Well, I learned 2 things, or at least one thing. I didn't close the return. It was still open. So I've learned now what you want to do is after 7 days, if somebody doesn't return something, call eBay, or I prefer to message eBay for business and close the return. So that would have saved me a lot of grief. But I spoke with a friend of mine online, Sasha, and we talked about it and him hawing around. And he's like, offer the guy some money. Maybe he'll take some money because the guy had taken too long to return it anyway. So anyways, long story short, I offered him $80, I think it was, a partial refund, and he could keep the bat. And he was thrilled. So I still sold this bat for $390. I learned about waves that I just taught you guys, and I learned about the return system. So it was an expensive couple of lessons, but at least I still sold the bat. So that's my little story on that. But
that's crazy.
For this bat it's a home run. So here's some more BOLOS and more holy grails. If you think that bat was crazy money, you're going to see some more. So I just started doing some searches for you guys and for me. I've learned a lot doing this presentation. Just to see what's out there. I said Nike makes bats, and I haven't found a Nike one to sell yet. I just don't see very many in the wild. But here's one that's a very popular bat from what I found in my research, the Aero Fuse. There's a couple different versions. And here's one that sold for $250. So that's crazy money if you find these cheap. Like I said, I always thought worth bats weren't worth much, but here's one that sold for $266 plus shipping. Economy shipping, I guess. You didn't want to sell it. Or I guess it's in Canada. So this is a modern 2017 Worth comp, so it's a composite bat. Most of the Worth bats I'm finding out in the wild are older aluminum ones that just aren't worth a lot. So if you find a composite Worth bat or any brand, definitely look it up. We got a whole bunch more of these. I tried to find some for all the different brand names in that earlier slide. So this is a Meekin bat, 2002, sold for $390. It's the Meekin Ultra. There's a couple different versions of this one too. So if you see any Meekin Ultra bats out there, look them up. Another thing you'll see with almost all of these bats, they're 30 to 34 inches long. Yeah, this guy got real excited. He says this is the hottest bat ever. This was one model year before that list of banned bats earlier. This was one model year before that. So DeMarini makes some really hot bats out there. This one is technically a legal bat to use. But if you see the CFA, CFZ is the model number, I guess. If you see any of these CF anything bats, DeMarini, but run out of the thrift store with it. If it's cracked, well.
Just start swinging on the way out. Get away
Yeah,
from me.
$1,300. Oh my gosh. I would fall over. Here's another one. Louisville Slugger makes, I've showed you guys a couple Louisville Sluggers I've sold, but here's another one. Meta Prime. Reminds me of a Transformer name or something, but this is a 32-inch bat, another $630 bat. So they are out there. They are out there, and they end up in thrift stores, and nobody knows what they are because they look just like all those other junk bats.
I wonder what the retail on that is, and it's selling used for $631.
Crazy money. Some of these, obviously sell for less than retail used, but some of these sell for more because, like those DeMarini CF bats, they only made so many, and everybody wants them. So the prices skyrocketed on some of those. I didn't do a lot of research on new bats. Obviously, all the information here has been about used, but it applies to new bats as well if you get lucky enough to find one. I've done a little bit of retail arbitrage and sold some, bought some on clearance at the end of the season, and then sold them the next spring. But you're not making crazy money doing that.
What slide are you seeing right now? Oh, there it is. It wouldn't switch. That was weird.
Yep. This is like I said, I was trying to find all the brand names, all the hot bats for the different brand names. The Marucci bats, Cat 8 is what you want to keep an eye out for on those. There's like a red version, I think, too, of this, but $265 bat plus shipping. Not the greatest picture, but it's still sold for $265. This guy needs to do some trim work in his house or apartment, but another Easton bat, and he's actually advertising that this is an illegal bat. He's calling it a shaved bat. So it's been milled on the inside to make the walls thinner, so it will have more, they call it pop or spring or trampoline effect. And he did, I read in the description on this one, he's like, this would be great for home run derby use or whatever. So, but it's a Easton Synergy bat again, but it's been modified to make it a hotter bat. $250. Crazy.
Weird. It's like this. Oh, I've already changed it.
Okay. Yep. You're dragging a little bit.
I don't know why. Because I'm looking at the guy's feet. One.
Yep.
All right. Come on. Modern technology, isn't it great? What the hell?
Wonderful.
There we go.
All right. Now here's a horrible picture. You comment on this one. I didn't even get to see the feet earlier because all I saw was the cap of the bat. I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. At least he's showing a picture of the bat. But if I was scanning through a whole list of these, I'd have probably scanned right past this one because it doesn't even look like a bat. So, but he still sold it. One person out there bid on it, so they may have gotten a deal. This is a Mizuno brand. It's one of the other brands out there, F19 bat. So that's another one to watch out for. I think we're just about wrapping up the BOLOS, and then I did some other searches. I just wanted to show you guys to show you what's
I'm
up there.
I'm gonna refresh the computer. Oh
Okay.
my gosh, like a
I'm gonna have a
monster.
drink.
All right, you have a drink. And let me pop this back in here.
We are almost done. There's maybe 10 more slides. So. Yep, this is one of the last sections. So this is, thank you, top solds on eBay. I just did some searches on some terminology, basically. DeMarini makes a half and half bat, and I have one here somewhere. If you want to flip to me real quick, if it'll work. This is actually that broken, cracked composite bat I showed you guys earlier, but right in between here, instead of that thick rubber band area, it's just kind of a hard break between the two pieces of the bat. So you can actually see the barrel looks like it's slid over the handle. Anytime I see one of these half and half bats, and it's DeMarini, I look them up. They're not worth super crazy money compared to some of the other stuff I showed you, but it's still 100 and 140. There's one that sold for $250. So definitely worth checking out.
You see under the top. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Do you see the top solds?
Yep, I'm on the top solds DeMarini half bat. So we can go to the next one. We were doing so good.
I know, stupid technology.
Here we go. There's really just a few left. So here's, I just did a search on Easton used bats sold, highest to lowest. So there's that Easton Stealth bat, the 2009, sold I think for $900. I looked up, they took a best offer, but when I checked, I used flippertools.com to check the actual selling price, and it said $900, which is kind of weird. But there's that Z2K bat that I sold for $470. There's one that sold for $600. That's a 34-inch. Mine might have been a 33. There's the Easton Typhoon Titanium. So here's another one of those titanium bats. So definitely keep an eye out for those. Sold for $550. And at the very bottom, there again is that orange stealth bat. Keep an eye out from that. And remember this picture that I circled. We'll get to that slide in just a couple. Maybe. And I looked up senior league bat when I was still trying to figure out what they meant by senior league. And these are actually probably little league bats, but they're just senior league means it's a wide diameter barrel bat. So it's probably might be 2 3/4, just a little bit less than that, but wider than like the 2 1/4 inch typical bat. So these CF Zen bats, crazy money. $1,100, $1,000. Yeah. So this is why if anytime I see and this slide too, anytime I see a DeMarini bat, I'm looking it up. Because it seems like a lot of them go for really crazy money. See, we're almost at the end. So just for fun, I looked up the term hot back, since that's what I call it, and a few other people did call different bats out there hot bats. It's not a real popular term, but it's interesting. All the bats that popped up in the top here are all DeMarini bats, including that CF Zen 2017 bat. They sold it at auction. I definitely wouldn't when I know I can sell it for $1,100. I would do a buy it now for sure. And just a quick run of top solds used bats. Here's some crazy person sold one for $1,800. Another DeMarini CF8 bat, $1,800, and all they have is a picture of the handle. Crazy.
And the title, 3 words.
Oh yeah, title's horrible. The middle one's okay if it wasn't a green bat, maybe in the grass. And the bottom one is another horrible picture. It's such a little sliver you can't even barely see. But it's that Meekin Ultra bat. This is the Ultra 2 version. That goes for crazy money as well. think we're almost done. So if you see this guy, I assume he's a drop shipper. You'll see this picture, all kinds of different bats, basically with the two, I think they're two kitchen placemats. Anytime you look up a bat that's worth $100 or more, he's going to have one for sale. He may not have any sold, but he will have one for sale for about double to 10 times the going rate. So all I can imagine is he sells this bat, the Z2K for $1,300, and he runs and buys one from me for $500 or $600, and hopes it all works out. I don't know. It's just that I wanted to get you guys aware of it because I definitely noticed it when I was been doing my research before. He doesn't sell a lot of them, but they're out there. And last but not least is just my credits. I used a lot of info on here. It's justbats.com. If you Google just about any bat model number, it'll take you to that website, and you can get a lot more information. You can find out the year the bat was made and all kinds of stuff. And I just want to give credit to Cincinnati Picker. He has a YouTube channel out there. He did a short video on bats that I watched a year and a half ago that really helped me get started. And a lot of that same information's in here, but I added a lot more. He's got about a 10-minute video. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. So, all right, that's it.
So we got one question in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, my tag's gonna stick out. And I realize technology is playing nice, and you're hearing two of me, but we'll get through this.
Yep.
Angela Ritchie asks, can the two-part bats be sold for parts?
No. Not that I'm aware of. I didn't look into that, but they're glued together. So if you find one that's loose, you don't want it. So that is, I guess, the fourth fatal flaw of a bat. If it's coming apart, you do not want to sell it. I've only found one. They called it like a flex handle, and the handle itself had two separate pieces. And the handle tape was two different colors, like we saw in a couple of bats. And I just happened to notice it. I was twisting the handle, messing around with the bat, and I could literally twist the handle. And I didn't think it's supposed to do that. So.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Before I smash my face with the back, and I keep hearing myself come back to myself. We chatted earlier, and no hiccups.
Yeah, hey, we made it almost all the way through, so I'm happy.
Crazy. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if you have any questions after the fact, just feel free to post them on the post in Secret Beach, and Mike will pop in and answer it. I've been flipping bats for a while.
Yep, I'm on the beach, so feel free to ask or private message me if you want. Even I don't mind. If you private message me and I don't answer, I didn't see it, so hit me up on the beach. Let me know you messaged me. Sometimes those things don't pop up, so I'll be happy to help you.
Cool, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And we'll see you Thursday with 13 Business, which is going to be amazing. So tune in for a story that'll blow your mind. And I can't myself, so goodbye.